Afternoon, sir. Hello.
Please go
Good
ahead.
afternoon.
Srinath, go ahead.
No worries. No worries. Thank you for having me here.
No, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure, actually.
So we can try by looking at this as more or less of an anatomy lecture.
Yeah, I'll just introduce you. Just a minute.
Sure, sir.
So, welcome to all the residents across the country. It's my pleasure to introduce you today, Dr. Deepak Padmanabhan, who is our eminent cardiologist at Narayana Hridayalaya, and he's also a fellow. He is a DM cardiology and also has fellowship in electrophysiology and advanced adult cardiology. He's an ex-assistant professor in Mayo Clinic, USA, and assistant professor in electrophysiology at Sri Jayadeva Institute of Cardiovascular Sciences and Research. So today we'll have him as our expert for the basic sciences, and he will be telling us about the applied cardiac anatomy for the electrophysiologist. It's very important that all of us are aware, and whichever part we are working with, whether we are a physician, surgeon, gastroenterologist, or emergency physician, or a intensivist, anywhere. So this is another important lecture where Anbai would like to extend a warm welcome to you all. Anbai is Association of NBA accredited institutions. On behalf of Anbai, I welcome you, Dr. Deepak. Please go ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you once again for having me here. At any point of time, if anybody has a question, feel free to stop me and ask me. We shall be attempting to cover certain high yield locations within the cardiac anatomy, which have a lot of clinical relevance, not so much as just answering an examination, but for management of the patient. And I hope that some of you go on to become electrophysiologists and structural cardiologists, where some of this information might help you. So let me begin by figuring out what the objectives are. This is just a loose set of objectives. I've tried to divide all of it on the basis of certain structures and procedures in EP. What is important when you're talking about SVT? What is important when you're talking about VT? What does the interatrial septum look like? What is the anatomy of the conduction system? So it's critical for all of us when we see or think about anatomy is to think like a mechanical engineer. My dad used to say the toughest paper in first year engineering is supposed to be machine drawing. That's because you need to imagine the anatomy or the structure not as a two-dimensional planar structure, but you should always remember it like a three-dimensional structure. So anything that you see from front on, you need to be able to imagine it from side on. Else you will miss things. It's very critical that we see everything in the third dimension too, so that we are able to figure out what is going on. So let me give you an example. If you look at the skull and somebody shoots you in the face, so if you want to know where that bullet is, you want to be able to perform an AP X-ray as well as a lateral X-ray. Once you're able to do that, you know exactly where the bullet is, right? Compare that to the heart. You could have easily done an AP of the heart and a lateral of the heart also. But unfortunately, the heart decided to be more towards the left side and slightly slanted. As a result of which, the anatomically accurate views for the heart are what is called the right anterior oblique and the left anterior oblique views. So if you imagine the heart, this is the heart in the right anterior oblique, and this is the heart in the left anterior oblique. So the heart is then divided into an anterior part and a posterior part on the RAO view. The anterior part of the heart is essentially the ventricle of the heart. both the right and the left ventricle are anterior to the respective atria. And even more anterior to the to the ventricles are the outflow tracts. So if you see an RAO view of the heart, this anterior border is mainly the right ventricular outflow tract going on to the cardiac apex this way, and posteriorly this region is the atrium, the right atrium. So it could either be right atrium or left atrium. How do you know which one it is? That is done when you take a lateral or an LAO view. So in the LAO view, the heart on this side is the right, the heart on this side is the left. So if I tell you, show me the right ventricle, you take an RAO, you say this is ventricle, you take an LAO and say this is ventricle, or this is the right side. So this portion in this location is the right ventricle. So if you look at this catheter placed within the surface of the heart, and remember this is useful for X-rays also. So if you look at this catheter, you want to know where this catheter is, you take the RAO view, see that it is anterior, so it is probably ventricular. Then you take an LAO view or a lateral view, it is seen towards the right side of the shadow, so it is right ventricular. Similarly, if you have this catheter, how do you know where this catheter is? So again, let's do the same mathematics. In the right anterior oblique view, this catheter is present posteriorly, so it's likely to be atrial. And on the LAO view, it's slightly more left-sided. So this could be on the interatrial septum. Remember, the IVC is where these catheters are coming in from. And if you look at it in a lateral view, you'll notice that the IVC is entering into the right atrium is essentially more an eccentric structure. It's not entirely right-sided. It's kind of more towards the midline. Remember, if this is the spinal column, on the right side next to it is the IVC. So it's a midline structure, and then it balloons out into the right atrium and the ventricle here, and the left ventricle and atrium on this side. So remember, the heart is slightly oblique, more towards the left side, and every time you need to think about where you want to fluoroscopically, radiologically look at the heart, understand where certain things are, you have to take into account the obliquity of the heart. So the right anterior, the left anterior oblique views are your critical friends. In the right anterior oblique view, anything in the anterior or the front part is ventricular. Anything posterior is atrial. Then you use the left anterior oblique or the lateral view to figure out what is posterior. What did we say? Anything towards the back end is atrial. Anything towards the front end is ventricular. And how do you know what is front and what is back? The spine is there posteriorly. The xiphisternum or the sternal processes are there anteriorly. So immediately below the sternum, you will have the right ventricle. Superiorly, you have the right ventricular outflow tract. So the first structure, if I push a needle in through here, or if you hit somebody in the chest, it is the outflow tract that will get affected, namely the right ventricular outflow tract, and then more inferiorly, the right ventricle. The left ventricle is something that is more posterior than the right ventricle, and it is more lateral. You cannot really see. If you take an AP image, you perhaps see a sliver of the left ventricle, but on an RAO image, essentially you are seeing the right ventricle rather than the left ventricle. Now, what structures do we see within the right atrium? Remember, we talked about the RAO view. So this is the RAO view in which the heart has been opened up. The front of the heart, the anterior wall of the heart has been peeled away. to reveal what is the lateral part of the right atrium and the medial part of the right atrium. This, as I said, inferiorly and more medially is the IVC. The SVC drains in from top here. If you look at the plane of the SVC and the plane of the IVC, they are not exactly one above each other. There's a slight angulation there. And that is very important when you're pushing in anything from the IVC into the heart, trying to reach the jugulars or near the brain. So if you put a wire, all the time it may not straight away go into the SVC. It may actually hit the septum, change its course, and actually go into the anterior anterolateral part of the right atrium, which is essentially the right atrial appendage. Remember, unlike the left atrial appendage, the right atrial appendage is a huge structure. There is not much difference between the cavity of the right atrium and the right atrial appendage. Compare that to the left side, where the left atrial appendage is a small little pouch, finger-like extension that comes away from the left atrium. If the left atrial appendage was as large as the right atrial appendage, the left atrial appendage would never have clots and we would have never to give anticoagulation for atrial fibrillation. It is the left atrial appendage that undergoes ligation when you have clots in them during surgery. So coming back here, within the right atrium, you have the remnants of the primitive right atrium, which are this rough part of the right atrium. They are separated from the smooth part of the right atrium by this structure that you can see, thick structure called crista terminalis. The crista terminalis is inert. You cannot electrically cross the crista terminalis. So electrically also, your heart is divided into the posterior right atrium and the anterior right atrium. Anatomically, the anterior right atrium or the appendage is a derivative of the sinus venosus, and posteriorly you have got the extensions from the primitive right atrium. These structures are again trabeculated and they are rough, and they go medially extending on to the septum of the right atrium. Just posterior to the crista terminalis as it extends medially is the fossa ovalis. Remember, this is the site of the ostium secundum. When you are born, this fossa closes. Sometimes there is a small opening which can cause paradoxical embolism from the right to the left. Also, when you do a Valsalva maneuver or you strain, bubbles can go in or small clots can go in from here towards the left side of the heart. Now, again, this is more posterior. Remember, this is the RAO view. So anything posterior is the posterior right atrium. Anything anterior is the anterior right atrium. And if you see carefully, the posterior right atrium is essentially smooth. It does not have a lot of structures in it. And it's in communication with the SVC and the IVC. Whereas the anterior right atrium, after being divided by this crista terminalis, seems to have a lot of structures, both laterally in the form of these trabeculae and even medially. You can see a lot of structures here. Now, remember, the anterior part of this septum is where the conduction tissue resides. The conduction tissue of the body connecting the right atrium to the ventricle is in the anterior part of the septum. So imagine the septum divided into three parts. One in the line of the IVC to the SVC, two up to this anterior border of the crista terminalis, and three anterior to this where the conduction system resides. Now, the conduction system consists of the compact AV node, which then pierces the septum to go towards the left side and then form this is the bundle of His, the piercing bundle of His or the penetrating bundle of His, and then divides into your traditional Purkinje fibers. Inferior to this compact AV node is the opening and the roof of the coronary sinus. The coronary sinus is an important structure because if you see the previous slide, this catheter that you can see extending is a catheter that goes in from the neck, right atrium, ostium of the coronary sinus, and right into the coronary sinus. So this is an important vein. It carries blood from the rest of the body of the heart into the right atrium. The coronary sinus is also important because the roof of the coronary sinus is where the AV node is present. So this structure is one of the key structures. Absence of this structure would have made heart failure management very difficult because nowadays we do procedures called resynchronization therapies, which involves putting a lead into the coronary sinus and from there into one of the branches. Again, I told you the ventricles are anterior to the atria. So as you go more anteriorly, you encounter the tricuspid valve, which in turn leads to the right ventricle. Coming on into this region a little bit more, I want you to look at these particular structures and imagine a small triangle. At the apex is this penetrating bundle of His or the catheter recording the His. Anteriorly is this septal leaflet of the tricuspid valve, and posteriorly is this tendon, which is the medial extension of the crista terminalis. So you get a triangle which is apex here, posterior border, posterior end of the crista, anterior end of the crista terminalis, anteriorly the septal leaflet of the tricuspid valve, and a line joining these two structures. This triangle is one of the most important anatomical structures within the heart, also called the Cox triangle. This is where one of the most common reentrant arrhythmias of the heart, also called AV nodal reentrant arrhythmias, originates and has its circuit. So this particular anatomical setting is conducive to the generation of this particular arrhythmia. Again, let me repeat the boundaries. The apex is the penetrating bundle of His. Anterior margin is the tricuspid valve septal leaflet. Posterior margin is the extension of the crista terminalis onto the septum. It is also called tendon of Todaro, and a line joining the base here. This is an important MCQ question, and this is the Cox triangle. Moving on. This is what is the LAO view of the heart. Remember, I told you the LAO view or the lateral view gives us the right side of the heart and the left side of the heart. So this is the left atrioventricular valve, also called the mitral valve. And this is the right-sided atrioventricular valve, also called the tricuspid valve. Now this is the IVC. And as you come up from the IVC and try to get into the right atrium, and from the right atrium, you try to go into the right ventricle, you encounter these structures. There is the valve of the IVC, also called the Eustachian valve, and then the valve of the coronary sinus, which can be seen here, which is right here. So between these two structures is what is the cavo-tricuspid isthmus. Anteriorly, you have got the tricuspid valve annulus. Posteriorly, you have the IVC with or without a valve. And the area between these two is the cavo-tricuspid isthmus. This structure should not be imagined as a flat structure. It is filled of either the trabeculae coming in from the right atrial appendage, or there may be pouches which may be present, making it more like a cup-shaped structure rather than a flat structure. There may be ridges because of the pectinati, or there may be pouches because of prominence of these valves. So this area is an important part for the arrhythmia called typical flutter. I'm sure all of you have heard of it, and we discussed counterclockwise flutter, clockwise flutter. So this is the region that supports that particular arrhythmia. This flutter keeps on electrically moving around the tricuspid valve round and round. The typical one is one which goes anti-clockwise like this, and the atypical one is one which goes clockwise like this. And how do you manage it? You draw a line with some burning energy, also called radio frequency energy, and draw a line connecting the tricuspid valve annulus to the IVC, thereby interrupting this particular circuit. So if you block this, you cannot cross over and go round and round, and that is how you treat the arrhythmia. So this is the important circuit or important anatomy for cavo-tricuspid isthmus dependent flutter. This structure or this image is of an intracardiac echo. This probe is placed within the right atrium. From the right atrium, you look downwards, you see the tricuspid valve. You see the connection between the tricuspid valve going ahead into the IVC. This is your catheter, and you can see how the cavo-tricuspid isthmus can actually be as much as a pouch. This is the so-called eustachian or the subeustachian pouch. And you can imagine if you have to bend your catheter here and ablate in this region, can be a nightmare sometimes. Now, proceeding from the tricuspid valve and the cavo-tricuspid isthmus, let's look at a section of the heart, again in LAO. Remember, anytime you can see both the atria or both the ventricles, it's LAO. It's like facing your, coming onto the side and looking at you. You can see the right side and the left side. So this is a section through the heart, cutting your heart vertically. You can see the right side of the heart as well as the left side of the heart. And I want you to concentrate upon the mitral valve and the tricuspid valve. Look at the offset between these two. The mitral valve is higher, the tricuspid valve is lower. Both the mitral and the tricuspid valve are not on the same level. There is an offset. This offset is what allows the penetration of the bundle of His onto the left side, extending onto the septum. This is the atrioventricular septum. The atrioventricular septum. If you poke a hole through this and come in here, you are going to cross from not atria to atria, but you will cross atria to ventricle. Similarly, look at this septum. This septum is the interatrial septum. And if you see, there is only one true septum here. This is the fossa ovalis. See how thin it is? This is where you want to cross over from the right to the left side. All of this, remember, if you cross here, as you can see, you exit the heart. The heart, the right atrium stops here. The left atrium begins here. This is pericardial space. So the superior part or the superior limbus of the fossa ovalis is actually made up of or intrapericardial space, the superior limbus. So if you pierce through here and then go here, you will go from the right atrium to the left atrium, but it will be after exiting the heart. Compare that to the limbal location, where if you pierce from the right side to go to the left side, you are going from one atria to another without exiting the heart. Again, inferiorly, it is the coronary sinus that comes through, and you cannot really cross from the right atria to the left atria at this location. I would also like to draw your attention to the pulmonary veins. These are the superior pulmonary veins, and look how they come in from the roof of the left atria. And imagine if you were entering the left pulmonary vein and you wanted to pull your catheter back and go into the right pulmonary vein, you have to appreciate the sloping nature of the left atrial roof. It is sloping. It's not a flat structure. It's a sloping structure. So you go in here, you come back out, you clock your catheter, go in here. So this is how it goes. And guess what resides in the roof of the left atrium? It is a branch from the circumflex artery, also called the sinus nodal artery. Okay. So let's go on further. We did discuss the interatrial septum in certain detail. This is again an RAO view of the same, along with the right ventricle. Again, if I have to ask you, where is my pointer right now? Imagine you are anterior on RAO. So you are probably in the ventricle. And if you want to see where you are, whether right or left, you need to take an LAO for that. Going on, we did discuss these lines. The line connecting the SVC to the IVC, which is where it's the posterior part of the right atrium. The line between the SVC, IVC line and the line passing through the end of this crista terminalis extending onto the septum, which is where the fossa ovalis is. And then more anteriorly, where you get the conduction system and the coronary sinus. Remember, this is the location where you want to be if you want to do a transeptal puncture. Now going on from there, we did talk about the transition of the conduction system into the left side. So that location, the apex of that anterior part of the interventricular septum, is essentially a junction between the septal leaflet of the tricuspid valve and the anterior leaflet of the tricuspid valve. This is a cut section through the heart where you've removed the atria. You are looking at the heart from above. So you can see the tricuspid annulus, the mitral annulus. And like to bring your attention to the junction between the anterior leaflet of the tricuspid valve and the septal leaflet of the tricuspid valve. See, the anterior leaflet is more anterior. The septal leaflet is right here. And at this junction is where anatomically the bundle of His penetrates to go over towards the left side. And where does it open up? When it goes over to the left side, it opens up between the right sinus of Valsalva and the non-coronary sinus of Valsalva. This is the location where it opens up. You can see this junction right here. And since the atria are offset, you can imagine how that looks at that location. Again, going in from here, if you push a needle, this is where you will exit, after which the bundle of His then breaks down into the left anterior fascicle and the left posterior fascicle. Also like to draw your attention towards the intricate relationship between the valves. Remember the tricuspid valve annulus, the mitral valve annulus, the anterior part of both these annuli are not in contact with each other. The posterior part of both these annuli are in contact, but the anterior part is actually broken down by this structure, which is part of the central fibroskeleton of the heart as formed by the aorta. This is your aorta. This is the mitral, tricuspid, and anterior to the aorta is the valve of the pulmonary artery or the pulmonic valve. This is where the RVOT is present and comes out. So when you get blood vessels coming out from the left coronary sinus of Valsalva and the right coronary sinus of Valsalva, these are on two different sides of the heart, whereas the non-coronary sinus of Valsalva is essentially close to the interatrial septum. So remember we talked about going transseptal? Imagine instead of going in that fossa ovalis, if you went anteriorly, you would essentially enter the aorta. This is the diagram that actually shows that it is possible to go from the right atrium to the left atrium safely, but if you go anteriorly, you will end up into the aorta, which is essentially a catastrophic finding. Now imagine if instead of the aorta here, you had the pulmonary artery here and the aorta present here. That is the condition called transposition of great vessels. That is when you get the right ventricle giving rise to the aorta and the left ventricle giving rise to the pulmonary artery. Good. Now, coming to the relationship between the outflow tracts themselves. Remember, the pulmonary artery is anterior to the aorta, but the pulmonary artery crosses from the right side of the body towards the left side, whereas the aorta starts off from the left side and then curls around to form the arch from the right side, after which it descends down as the descending aorta. So if you imagine we take a cut section through the heart at this level, from anterior to posterior, you get the right ventricular outflow tract, anterior wall. You get the posterior wall of the right ventricular outflow tract. You get the aorta. Crossing the aorta, the left coronary sinus of Valsalva here is in continuation with the leaflet of the mitral valve, and then you come across into the left atrium. This continuation between the left coronary sinus of Valsalva and the leaflet of the mitral valve is called the aorto-mitral continuity. This is the AMC. This is another region which can be displaced and changed if you have congenital valvular anomalies of the mitral valve, like either having a parachute mitral valve or having an abnormal position of the aorta and the pulmonary artery, namely the transpositions. Going on from there, let me come back to this figure and show you that you have relations between the coronary arteries and various structures on the right side also. Now let's look at this image. Remember, I told you anything that comes anteriorly is in the ventricle. So this structure here is probably within the ventricle. And as you can see on the LAO, this is on the right side, so it's in the right ventricle. Anything that is high up and anterior is in the RVOT. Look at it on the LAO, you can see that this is in the RVOT. So look at how close the RVOT goes towards the left main. This catheter is in the left main and the RVOT is in close proximity to the left main. But we did guess that, right? we did see this anatomy where the posterior wall of the RVOT is in close conjunction to the left main. So anything you do here, whether you have an anomaly, a pulmonary valve that is stenotic, you have pulmonary regurgitation, you have tetralogy of Fallot, there is always going to be pressure on the left main if the posterior part of the RVOT is actually impinged upon. That is why sometimes, because of the pressure, perhaps the aorta may turn slightly more anteriorly so that the right sinus of Valsalva comes here, the left sinus of Valsalva comes posteriorly, and the left main then has to course this location to reach the left side. We did discuss the outflow tract and its various relations. Again, this catheter is within the coronary sinus, which is on the epicardium, and this is an endocardial surface catheter, which are within the right ventricular outflow tract. Remember, anterior, and it is superior. That's where the right ventricular outflow tract is. This communication between these two, you can either burn this tissue or perform procedures on this tissue from the inside of the heart or from the outside of the heart. Both come to the same location. Just like we used to say, all roads lead to Rome, so all roads lead to this particular structure on the outside of the heart. Going on, let's discuss a little bit on to the atrial structures. Remember this figure where we had taken off the atrial part of the anatomy? If we reintroduce that and you look at it from a superior view from the top with the heart looking down at you, you will see that the right atrium essentially wraps around the heart with the entire anterior part of it being the appendage. We did discuss that. The SVC is not to one side. It's actually in the middle. And interestingly, the SVC is also related to the pulmonary veins. So if you poke a needle from the SVC posteriorly, you will enter the right superior pulmonary vein. This relationship is also important because one of the common issues we face is also anomalous pulmonary vein connection. So when anomalous pulmonary vein connection is there, you can see why it is so easy for a pulmonary vein to open into the SVC. If this barrier or this so-called septum doesn't form, the pulmonary vein is opening into the SVC. So it's not a very difficult anatomical thing to wonder about. It's just that this septum failed to develop. Similarly, you can imagine how close the SVC is towards the aorta. The SVC on its medial end can actually see signals from the aorta, and you can actually perforate or have a communication between the aorta and the SVC or the aorta and the right atrium when there are aneurysms within the sinuses of Valsalva, and when they rupture, they are called ruptured sinus of Valsalva. This is one of the most important causes of a continuous murmur on the chest after a PDA in infancy. Patient will present to us with hyperdynamic circulation, and depending on where the sinus of Valsalva has enlarged, you will get entry into either the right atrium, you may get entry into the left atrium, or perhaps into the ventricle. Again, as I mentioned, the normal heart has the right ventricular outflow tract anterior to the left ventricular outflow tract. So it is right ventricular outflow tract anterior and then slightly towards the left as the pulmonary artery comes out. The left ventricular outflow tract starts off on the left side, but then becomes on the right side as it continues as the aorta and then the arch. Now, the left atrium is actually the posterior most structure here. You can appreciate that. This is the interatrial septum right here. And the left atrium is so posterior. The only anterior part of the left atrium is the left atrial appendage. And contrast how the left atrial appendage is a separate pouch as compared to the right atrial appendage. Now, here is a call. If this is the right sinus of Valsalva, this is the non-coronary sinus of Valsalva, and this is the left coronary sinus of Valsalva, you can imagine that the tip of the left atrial appendage is pointing towards an artery that is to come from here and then go down here, namely the left main. That is where it will come. Look at this here. Imagine if the appendage was here, this tip is pointing towards the left main. And this circumflex artery that you see coming in will course right here to come out. I'm sorry, sorry about that. This being that structure, it will point towards the tip of the left anterior descending and the left main, and the circumflex will then course through in here at the annulus. We just discussed this again. This is an opening of the pulmonary artery going from right to left, the aorta going from left to right, forming the arch, being in close proximity to the SVC. And this is the left atrial appendage, which is the anterior most part of a posterior left atrium, where the left coronary sinus of Valsalva will give out the left main, which is posterior to the pulmonary artery again, and is pointed at by the left atrial appendage. Again, this is essentially an RAO view of the heart. And as you can see, the SVC is seen on this cut section, whereas the IVC is not readily seen. So you have to imagine the heart in a three-dimensional structure where the SVC and the IVC are not exactly in a straight line. Again, interesting relationship between the posterior wall of the SVC and the right superior pulmonary vein. And this entire part, as you can see, or you can see it better here, this is the left atrium with the 4 pulmonary veins. Again, the roof of the left atrium has the pulmonary artery and the aorta coursing across it. You can see it going from this side, the right, to the left is the arch, and beneath the arch, you can see the pulmonary artery bifurcating into the right pulmonary artery and the left pulmonary artery. So these are your two different structures which are in very close relationship to each other. Going on from there into the remnant of the conduction system that we have not really discussed. On the left side, the conduction system, as it exits at the junction of the right and the non-coronary sinus of Valsalva, breaks down essentially into two major fascicles, the left anterior fascicle and the left posterior fascicle. It is only up to here that we know and can predict what they look like. Beyond that, this is essentially a network of fibers which have no specific distribution or anatomical predilection. It is something that is very, very small, forms an intricate network, and has great variability in the way it divides. This is the Purkinje system of the heart and is responsible for, one, the near simultaneous conduction of both the right and the left sides of the left ventricle, as well as it is thought to mediate perhaps ventricular fibrillation. In summary, therefore, remember, if you want to think about anatomy, think about it for the heart in biplanar views. A single plane is not useful. You have to think about the oblique views because the heart is towards one side. more towards the left than towards the right. The true interatrial septum is only the fossa ovale. The bundle of His pierces the membranous septum, which is anterior to the atrioventricular septum. We did show you the atrioventricular septum, which is between the right atrium and the left ventricle. The outflow tract are intimately related to the atria and the coronary vessels. The left atrial appendage points towards the left main coronary artery and the left anterior descending artery. At the tip of the left atrial appendage, at the base of the left atrial appendage, you get the left circumflex artery. And finally, there is no known distribution of Purkinje fibers within the left ventricle, and they are present at all sites within the left ventricular cavity without any described distribution or bifurcation patterns. Thank you for your patient hearing. I'll be happy to take questions if there.
Thank you very much, Dr. Deepak. It was a wonderful session, and the residents have, I think they have had a lot of their people. As of now, there are no questions. If anybody has a question, you can type it into the chat box, or you can ask us directly. We'll be happy to answer your questions.
So Dr. Srinath, I think either they've understood it very well or they've understood perfectly nothing at all.
So you have gone through every bit of a detail which I could see, that there is no question of people don't understanding it. Already people have said perfect anatomy dissection of heart. So you can see there how nice it was, your explanation.
You're very kind, sir. You're very, very kind. So is there a way we should perhaps test all these people with some kind of a poll or something of that sort? Maybe we should have some questions that...
Yeah. Usually what we do is at the end of the session, we keep 2 or 3 questions and we keep asking them to type them into the chat box. And
Correct.
So next time onwards, we'll keep this.
Yeah, probably I can come up with certain multi-choice questions for the beginning and the end of the session.
Yeah.
Ooh. Somebody asked a very tough question.
Yeah.
RFA technique. So let's try. I'll try and share my screen. We'll go to that image we had. Let me try if I can tell you what we do. Give me 1 second. Oh, sorry about that. Not able to share my screen.
You can go to the share screen. There is a share screen.
Yeah, 1 second, sir. Yeah,
Okay.
there we go. So let's go to, this image. So let's take a look at this image. So when you're trying to do an AFib ablation, you're basically trying to enter the heart from the IVC, go up to the superior limbus or go into the SVC, drop your catheter from there into this foramen ovale, pierce the foramen ovale, get access into the left atrium. Once you've gotten access into the left atrium, you have certain specialized circular catheters that go into the pulmonary veins. So when they go into the pulmonary veins, you keep these catheters at the ostium of the pulmonary vein right here. And then you ablate around these veins with radiofrequency energy to isolate these pulmonary veins electrically from the rest of the left atrium. So these are the superior veins. You also have inferior veins. So if you isolate all 4 of these veins, technically it seems that in paroxysmal atrial fibrillation, it benefits these patients. So the circular catheter is placed in each one of these 4 veins, and around these veins, you kind of burn around them and you isolate them, not within the veins. It has to be done in the left atrium, outside the veins. So you can imagine it has to be done right across here and burnt right across here. Similarly for this location, out here, and then complete it this way. If you burn within the veins, you'll cause pulmonary vein stenosis, which is even worse than atrial fibrillation itself. So that's one distinction that we do. That is, for the most part, the technique that has most successfully been able to manage paroxysmal atrial fibrillation. Does that answer your question, Priyanka? Perfect.
Any other questions, please? Okay, if there are no questions, I would like to thank on behalf of ANBI to Dr. Deepak Padmanabhan for spending his time and giving his inputs. And we'll have much and much classes with him. Thank you all. Goodbye.
Thank you so much, Dr. Srinath, for having me. I thanked Anbai also to have me here. It's a pleasure being able to teach, and would love to be able to have more specialized systems or lectures on individual parts. Everybody do let Dr. Srinath know. If you require anything, we'll be happy to help you. All the best.
Thank you.